Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei and I'm super excited to paint with you today. Today we're going to be tackling some super simple holiday illustrations that you can put on a holiday or Christmas card, and anyone can do these. I'm going to break it down into some really easy steps. Now, my examples here are also going to have some stamps on them as well as some ink in addition to watercolor. So if you have those supplies, if you have access to some fun little stamps, that's great. I'll put links in the description to where I get my stamps and show you how these work. These are really affordable and easy to get lots of variety of different types of stamps. And also some pen. So if you have a permanent pen, it has to be waterproof in order to do this. Or you would really want it to be, even though we'll put it on last. I use Micron pens often for this type of project. So we're going to use watercolor, Micron pen, and I'm going to use some stamping, but you can certainly do the whole snowman as well as any of these other illustrative elements without the stamp in the middle, but I'm going to add some to mine. So to get us started, I have my core watercolor paints. I'll primarily be using, I think, my size 3 round brush. This is a Princeton Select brush. Again, check out the description I'll have of the video, and I'll have all of those links to materials in there. I'm also using 90 pounds. So this is a lighter watercolor paper because I'm going to be adhering it to a card. This is 90-pound hot press paper, so it's a smoother surface. Yeah, that's it. 100% cotton, and we're going to get started. Okay, so first I'm going to start by stamping mine because that's going to lead, for the first one, that's going to lead my design. So I have this archival ink pad here. So again, whatever stamping ink you use, you do want to make sure it's archival and also permanent. And then I have these really cool acrylic blocks that have these rubber stamps that you attach to them. Actually, they're not rubber, they are, it'll come to me, but like a silicone. And you can swap them out. They come in big sheets. Usually you can buy them with like 20 different or 10 or 15 different messages on them. And then you just adhere them to the acrylic block like so, and they're not going anywhere. They're not going to move until you peel it off, and it comes right off super easy. And you can peel and stick it a bunch of times. It just uses the friction of the silicone against the acrylic. There's no actual sticky material on it. Okay, so once you have it lined up on your little acrylic block, or you've picked out the one you want, just throw it on your stamp pad, press it down, close that up. And then this one, these are great because it does have little grid lines on it. You might not be able to see it. And then line it up. Whenever you're stamping, do your best to just be confident and go for it. Put it right down, press it nice and hard, and then pull it off. So this one says, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Oh yeah, there's the A. I was like, it's missing the A. That's a defective stamp. No, but "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Okay. And then I have a snowflake one here that I'm going to use on a different one. All right, so let's start with that. You do want your ink to dry, so before you get started. And with this one, I'm going to draw on my illustrations first. So we're going to be drawing in some very simple Christmas trees, as well as some baubles or ornaments here, and then just a string of lights. And then this around the center here, I just put watercolor and made a circular kind of pattern design. So we can start with that. I did have a little ink on my finger and it got on my card a little bit. Okay. So be careful when you're stamping. Often when I do stamping, I stamp a bunch of cards all at once, and then I set them aside to dry. I go wash my hands, just so we're not getting ink and watercolor, like elements of it mixed up. All right, so for this one, I am just going to circle around, and look, I'm not being super careful. There, I've just drawn a circle, an oval, a sketchy little something or other around this "We wish you a Merry Christmas." And I'll start with our trees. So I'm going to do 2 trees. I'm going to do one here, and I'm just going to draw a funky little triangle. Super easy. We're going to give it a little stem and a tiny little bucket. Okay, and now I'm going to tuck one behind it. Same thing, they can be a slightly different shape. So this one's a little thinner, this one's a little fatter. I overlap my little circle element there. Same thing, bucket on the bottom. You have your first set of trees. And you can add more details. I'm going to leave the details till later with my pen. So on here, you can see I added some like what would be considered like light strings. And this one I added some marks that would simulate like the branches of a tree. I'm going to do those later after I have painted the watercolor on. You could do them before though. So let's do also up here, I'm going to do some ornaments. So I'm going to do 3 traditional shapes. We have, I'm just taking this out so it doesn't have the glare, but a round one, a kind of long, almost teardrop shape one, and then this, I don't know what these shapes are called, but this wider, it comes to a point at the end and a point, and it has a wider center. These baubles. But these are very traditional. So I'm going to start up here with this bauble. And if you want to draw yours out in pencil first, because you're not sure how it's going to go, you can definitely do that. Put a little top on it. I'm going to draw a round one. I'm actually going to tuck the circular one behind, and you saw, look, so I'm sketching out my circle and I just lift my pen and I keep going to kind of give myself the illusion that I'm going all the way around. A little muscle memory. There we go. And if you're not great at drawing circles, you need to sketch it out with pencil first, go for it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, and then I'm going to do one more of this longer kind of teardrop shape one down here. So they're all kind of hanging down in this general area. And again, these have little patterns on them. I'll do that second. And then down here, let's just kind of cap it off with a set of string lights. So just a swooping, swirling line. And then off each side, I'm just going to draw these little shapes of holiday lights. And I just kind of, every other one, it can get a little weird in the loop, but these are tiny. So this one has to go this way and it has to kind of cross over the loop. And I'm just going to skip that section. This is probably the longest, most tedious part, to concentrate and make sure you kind of keep the pattern so it doesn't look too weird. I'm going to skip that section in the middle where they would overlap and it would just get too crowded. And one more over here. They're progressively getting bigger as I go down. Tuck that one behind. And one more. All right, so now we have our setup for all of our drawn out pieces. Super easy, right? Again, don't be afraid to sketch it out in pencil first. Don't get too hung up on the perfection of it. Sometimes those little wonky shapes, you know, if your triangle's a little funky, a little weird, those work the best. They are the most interesting to look at. They have this fun kind of childlike, naive quality to them that can be super fun and really interesting. Look at mine. Mine are not perfect. And I actually drew my lines on last, I think, on this one when I did it. And I purposefully outlined around kind of where, and I left gaps, and it makes it more fun. All right, so colors. Let's do colors. I am going to use this cobalt teal color. Not really a traditional Christmas color, but I love it. Again, it gives it this kind of playful, whimsical feel to it. I'm going to add the tiniest bit of Payne's Gray to it to desaturate it just a little bit. Look, it gives it that like vintage blue color, that like robin's egg vintage blue. If you add just a little. All right, so we got that color. I'm going to use that in a couple spots. I am going to use, I'm going to pull out Sap Green, but this is not quite the right green. I'm going to add some blue to it. Cool it down. That was a lot of blue. Okay. And now we have a super dark green, which I don't want either. So I'm going to add lots of water to it. So here, this is the color I'm looking for up here. This more, so these kind of go together. They're both cool colors. So I added Sap Green and Phthalo Blue together to get this color, and then added lots of water. And let's do a red. I'm going to do Alizarin Crimson, another cool red. So it has some undertones of blue in it. Give almost a burgundy feel. And if it's too red for you, you just pick up a little bit of your green and add it. And it gives it more of like a brick red. Like, again, that like kind of vintage desaturated look, if that's what you're going for. So I love this color palette. I think it is really fun. And then I am going to use a yellow ochre here for some goldish kind of effects on the baubles in some spots and maybe in the Christmas lights. So again, fun palette, fun desaturated palette. All right, so let's start using this blue here. I'm going to do one of my trees in blue. And I am just going to paint it in, and I'm going to leave some blank spots like I did before. I'm going to go outside the line a little bit in some spots like that. And I'm just going to drop in some bits of color. Okay, and I'm going to use this same color actually around my center. And I'm just swirling it around, getting most of the center, but then as I get further out, just swirling some lines, leaving gaps and blank spots, kind of like I'm sketching with my brush. And there we go. Leave it just like that. Perfect. And then while that dries, I don't want to do these two spots because I don't want the colors to bleed into the blue. So I'm going to leave this tree and this little bauble alone for a minute. Let's go to red. We'll do our bulb, our round bulb in this red. This is a little desaturated, a little bit more desaturated than I was thinking, which is why it's important to swatch out your colors, but it'll work. I think it's going to dry just fine. I'm going to put a little drop here. Okay. And then the one below it, I'm going to bop into this green. And again, I'm going to leave some on this one white highlights. I'm going to leave that one in the middle there and along the edge. And let's see, I think that's dry enough. We're going to get into our Christmas tree on this side, another green tree. And once this is done, I'm just filling this one in. We're going to do this last bauble here, which I'm going to do a darker blue color, like kind of like this, but I'm going to make it a little darker. So I'm going to pull some of my Phthalo Blue out and some Payne's Gray. I'm going to pop a little green in here. So it's just like a darker version. Same family. It's the other colors just a little bit different. There we go. Now to get to the lights. So I'm just going to use a combination. I'm gonna spice up this red a little bit. I'm gonna make this a little bit more red. So I'm gonna do reds every third one. I'm gonna do reds, blues, and yellows. So I'm gonna use the same, well, this yellow ochre that I haven't used yet. So skip this one, go to this one, skip here. And if you mess up and you like put two reds together, it's not the end of the world. There are enough of them. As long as it's not like every single, you know, you have all red on this side and then you skip and do yellow in the middle. Just try to vary the color. All right, so we're going to do kind of this blue here, this darker blue. And we'll just put that right next to, boom, boom, not that one. This one, this one, this one, this one. And then all the rest are going to be this yellow ochre color. Should have washed your brush off really good before you get into the yellow ochre. So this is kind of like a goldish, kind of can substitute for a gold, very golden yellow, desaturated yellow. All right, and then last but not least, let's put some gold tops on our ornaments. That red has dried very dark. I'm gonna glaze it. So I'm gonna give it a layer, a thin layer of a brighter color on top because it just dried a little too drab for me. There we go. That's better. And, oh, I have to do our buckets. Let's do those in red as well. That'll be a nice kind of contrast from the other side. All right, super cute. So this had a lot of elements in it, and we're gonna finish it off with a little bit of ink. You do have to let this completely dry before you can go back and put ink in. Otherwise your ink will start to bleed into the wet areas. So I'm gonna set this aside while we go to our next card. All right, so our next design is going to be our fabulous little snowman. Isn't he cute? And he probably looks maybe a little complicated or intimidating, but he is not. All right, so I am going to draw this one out in pencil first because there are some lines that I like to use. And I'm actually going to tape off the edges of this one so that I have a nice little border. So you can skip this part of the video or I'll fast forward through it. Now the paper I'm using, it's a 90-pound hot press. It's pretty soft, even though it's 100% cotton. So, and I'm using some pretty rough masking tape here. This is tough stuff. I do not recommend, but it's what was sitting right next to my desk since I was unprepared. But I would definitely recommend when you're using a lighter poundage paper or something that's a little more delicate, using washi tape. Or when I take this off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat it up first with my heat gun and then peel it off. It should peel right off. But don't just go ripping this off, otherwise you will be sorely disappointed. Okay, it will rip your edges. So now that we have masked that off for our border, all right, so we are going to first draw our snowman's kind of belly. So I'm just going to draw a big circle. So you want it to be just a big circle and then it's cut off at the bottom. But if you need to draw the whole thing, go ahead and draw all the way around. See how I'm going all the way around on the desk here? And I am using a very light pencil mark, so you probably can't see it very well, but we have, let me draw it a little darker. There we go. We have a nice circle. Now the next one I'm going to do is I'm also going to draw a circle for the head, and I like to actually draw the whole thing, and I overlap them just a little bit, but this helps me really get the correct shape. And then on the edges here, you're going to see I'm going to draw the scarf. And the scarf is just a big rectangle that goes over the whole center. And the reason I do this in pencil is because now I'm going to erase everything in the middle here. We don't need this part of our circles anymore. And you can see how it brings everything right together. And then our scarf edges are basically two triangles that are cut off. So they flare out, they're wider at the bottom, skinnier at the top, and they kind of meet in this one section. This is another part where you can erase the lines in between once you've drawn it out. And then for our earmuffs, we're just going to do one is going to be a big circle here. And then on this side, because our snowman is facing this way, we're not going to see the whole one on this side. It's just going to be half of a circle. And then the big band over our earmuffs. We're going to put two eyes kind of close together right here. I'm going to put the big carrot, which is a really long triangle. So it has a rounded bottom. You can see that little rounded bottom, big triangle. And I try not to cover up the other earmuff if I can. So you can see all the elements. And then last but not least, his smile, and it's going to dip below his handkerchief, his scarf. So it looks like it's covering up part of his mouth, like he's really tucked and bundled in there. And then our arms are just going to be up, but they're going to actually be going off the page. So it's just two big sticks. And we can also give him some buttons. You can do these on later if you want. So some buttons on his belly. All right, so those are all of the elements I've drawn out. You can draw them in with your marker now if you want. I'm going to paint in the buttons and the arms. I'm not even going to draw them in because they're black. I am going to round off the edges of my scarf. And you can see I'm sketching. I'm not like meticulously going hard line, hard line, hard line like that. I am actually using a sketchy, jagged line for all of my pieces. I want it to be light and have some movement to it. We'll add on some details to the carrot nose with you can add them on now if you wanted to. I like to usually add them on later, but you can add on like the little bits of the carrot that have the texture on it. You can paint in your eyes or you can draw in your eyes and your smile. It's up to you. I'm going to draw in the smile, but I'm going to paint in the eyes. And then earmuffs, if you want them to be like fluffier looking, go ahead, give them some jagged edges. And the band that goes across the top in the side of his face. All right, so everything else I'm going to paint in. And there's not a lot of painting to do here. So first and foremost, we're going to paint in the shadows of the body. Now this is really tough because you don't have to do that much. Let me get some I'm going to clean up this yellow spot because I don't need it. I'm going to make a nice light gray. Now your grays can have a yellowish tint to them, a reddish tint, a purplish tint. I am going to give mine there's a little bit of pink up here. Give mine, see this magenta in the corner that I'm reactivating with my gray. So mine's going to have like a pinkish purpley tint to it, my gray. So just a tint, just a hint. It still looks gray. It's just on the warmer side, the redder side. All right, so I am going to paint in under here, and I want it to be really light, so lots and lots of water. It might even look a little dramatic when you put it on, but hopefully it will dry very lightly. So you can see it's pretty dark, but I know this is going to be pretty light. I'm just adding more water to my brush. I'm not picking up any more paint. And I'm just going with the curve of the snowball, of the big snowball belly. I'm going to have this because you want the shadow to accentuate the shape of the object. So you can see big curve, big highlight in the middle, maybe a little shadow under the scarf as it's casting light. We're going to do the same thing with the face. I'm just going to do it on the one side here, around our earmuff. And there we go. We've already got some nice shape to work with, but you can still tell he's a white snowman, not fully gray snow. It all translates as white with a shadow on it. All right, so letting that dry a little bit, because you don't want to get into your other areas if it's going to bleed into that, because then he won't look like a white snowman anymore. He will look like a green goopy snowman. All right, and you can pick any colors you want for the scarf and the earmuffs. I'm going to go with traditional green and red. So I'm going to put a light wash of green on first. And then as that's drying, as it's almost dry, and you can see I touched his little cheek there, and it's still damp, and it's starting to bleed up into his gray area. So I'm just going to take my paper towel. So let yours dry. You do not have the pressure of the camera, even though I could totally pause it and come back. I'm just being impatient. All right, so we're going to do the side scarves here. And again, I'm going to leave some white space or some gaps, just because I don't want to touch the gray, and it also gives it a nice little quality to it. All right, as this is drying, I'm going to go in with some darker green and add, probably could have dried a little bit more, but adding some stripes, you can get the idea. I'm going to go back and add with lines later, but and again, I have overextended. All right, we're going to let that dry completely. All right, so let's move on to the earmuffs. We're going to go back to our Alizarin Crimson, but pure Alizarin Crimson, and paint these in. This one on this side. And now orange. If you don't have an orange, you can use your yellow, and like if I just had Alizarin Crimson and yellow, and I have a cadmium yellow or a Hansa yellow light, I'll make orange. But if you have an orange, you can use that too. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. And the more yellow you add, the more yellowy orange it will be versus reddish orange. Pick up some Payne's gray, some full saturation Payne's gray to do our eyes. Again, you can do these with your pen for sure. I'm hoping this is super dry. There we go. And then I'm going to draw in the stick arms with my pen, or with my paintbrush, sorry. There you go. I'll just give a hint of a finger over here on this side. And our buttons on our belly. And you can see I am being sketchy with these, just like I was with the pen, leaving some white spots showing. And I already did that. All right, so we are going to add some pink rosy cheeks, like in here. You can leave it like that. He could be done. Oh, and you know what else he needs? Eyebrows. A lot of people don't think of that. I mean, most snowmen don't have eyebrows. But it definitely helps with the cuteness quality of the illustration when you add in little eyebrows. We'll add those in with pen at the end. So I'm just taking a little magenta, any pink color you have, really watered down, or red. You could use your Alizarin Crimson, just really water it down quite a bit, because you just want a hint of rosiness, and we're just doing like a circular dot just over those little mouth lines on the side there. Perfect. All right, what else we have to do? I think we have to put our paintbrush down. We are going to give him eyebrows. Look at how much cuteness that adds when you just add the two little overarching eyebrows. You got to be careful with your eyebrows though, because if you have them at the weird angle or wrong angle, if they're too far tilted inward, it makes them look mad or angry. The further out they go, the more like childlike he looks, or sad even. All right, so let's go in with our pen. Again, make sure everything is dry. I'm going to add in some lines on the interior of the scarf for a little detailing. Gotta stick on the here. And then I think you can go back into your carrot if you need to and add the lines there. And I think we're done. All right, so now all I'm going to add for this guy is a stamp. Again, he could be totally done right now. Or I'm going to take this snowflake stamp. Here we go. And I am going to just put it in a few spots around the border. And you can see I'm not refilling it. So some spots are darker, some spots are lighter. And I'm going to do like a tiny little bit of one right there. Yeah, perfect. Okay. And then I'm going to use my heat tool. Okay, so this is low velocity, but gets pretty warm, really hot. I'm going to use this heat tool to peel off the tape. So I'm going to warm it up and peel the tape off as I go. And there we go. We have our finished little snowman card. Let's finish our details on this one. Now, we do have to still adhere it to the card itself. So I'm not going to show you that in this video, but I will put the supplies I use for the cards themselves and to adhere them. I just use this little guy here, the permanent adhesive Tombow roller on the back. Okay, so let's finish up with our designs on our little baubles and trees. So we'll do the same thing here. I'm going to just do a crisscrossing line pattern for some strings of lights. And then this one, I'm just going to go kind of outward from the center with these swooping lines, giving the impression of pine branches. And let's see, baubles, I'm going to do some looping lines here, and then we'll just put some circles in the middle and up top. And you can do whatever kind of designs you want. This one, oh, I did this like funky like ribbon back and forth design, which I thought was kind of cool. Reminds me of like ribbon candy. Good old fashioned ribbon candy. I used to remember that stuff at my grandparents' house. It was such a treat, but it wasn't actually very good. Like now that I really think about it, it was so pretty and of course very sugary. But when I kind of remember the flavors of it, I'm like, it wasn't that great. All right, so there we go. All done. And if there's anything else you want to do, if you want to color in these little attachments or add any other little designs, this would be the time to do it. So thank you so much for joining me for these little super easy, super fun, anyone can do them, holiday illustration cards. Just remember to keep it simple. Use your pencil to sketch things out to get it right first if you need to. And make sure to let things dry before you move on to the next step. So thank you so much. I'm Shayna Cersei. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the description of this video if you haven't done so already to look for the different materials and supplies that I use. And yeah, I think that's it. All right, y'all. Happy painting. Have a great afternoon.